for today is which IPO should we apply for to get listing gains? It's a limited topic. We are not here covering which IPO you should apply for the long term because that's a more complex one. Here we will focus on the listing gains. Once you get the listing gain, whether you hold on to it for longer or not is a separate call, and for which, by the way, you can come onto the Multiply app and ask that question. Let me just ask a quick couple of questions. Multiple applications under the same PAN or by the same individual increase the probability of allotment, right? That was question number one on the poll, and the answer is simply no, because all the applications will get rejected. The second question on the poll was pre-applying or applying on the first day increases the probability of receiving allotment. And again, the simple answer was no. You can actually apply on the last day without any issues. And with this, let us start the actual presentation. And as we said, the objective is to maximize the listing gain with a limited equity market risk of 1 week. There is a market risk. It is not a zero risk, but it's a limited one, of 1 week. What will we be covering? How to apply, which IPOs to apply in, what listing gains can be expected, but not which IPOs to hold post-listing. Now, typically, we will obviously recommend only the better IPOs, which today are seeing massive over allocations. Can change, but today it's seeing massive over allocations. So it's very important to reduce the cost of applying to nil or practically nil, so that whatever comes, even if it is less, is a gain. And today, all savings accounts are mandatorily ASBA accounts, which means that let us say you applied in an IPO for X rupees. Your savings account is not debited for that X rupees. The money continues to remain in your savings account, which means you will earn interest. You will not forego interest even if you do not receive any allotment. I think that's the mentality with which we should be applying in some of these IPOs. Whatever I get is a bonus. If I don't get it, I don't lose anything. What's a typical IPO timeline? It's on your screen. Typically, the offer closes on day 3. You would get a refund, say by day 9, and the IPO would list on day 11. So you run a market risk of 8 to 9 days, right? It is a risk, but not an unlimited risk if certain factors are met, which we will cover later on in the presentation. What are the IPO categories? One is a QIB, which we will not get into because that's for institutional investors. Second is the non-institutional investor, where anybody who applies for more than 2 lakhs comes under this. And the third is retail investors, anybody who applies up to 2 lakhs. The allocation for non-institutional investors, also called HNI category, by the way, is purely pro rata, right? So let us say you have applied 10 lakh rupees. The IPO is oversubscribed 20 times. You will get an allocation of 10 lakh divided by 20 of 50,000 rupees, right? For retail investors, let's look at the process. This covers actually all categories. All events, subscribed, undersubscribed, all of that. But let's straight away come to the category of largely oversubscribed, because we will not be recommending IPOs that are not in good demand and are not well subscribed, because they will then not list at a premium. So here, what happens typically is a computerized lottery, right? And people who win the lottery get one lot, which is today 15,000 rupees. The implication here is that it doesn't matter whether you are applying in the retail category for 15,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, or 2 lakh rupees. If you win the lottery, you will still get that same 15,000, and your probability of winning that lottery is actually unchanged, regardless of whether you have applied 15,000, 50,000 or 2 lakhs. So actually you can in the retail category simply apply for 50,000 rupees. What you might want to do is apply in multiple names, multiple family members' names to increase the probability of allotment. That does increase the probability, not the same individual applying for 2 lakhs instead of 15,000. But if you have 4 family members who can apply for 15,000, you have multiplied your probability by 4. By the way, if anybody has any questions, you can just put it onto the group chat. I will come to those questions at the end of the presentation and also invite more questions from all of you at that point in time. So, what are the steps to follow while applying for an IPO, right? One is you should be visiting the Multiply app to get our views on upcoming IPOs. We will usually try to give you a view on the first day of the IPO and give you a final view on the last day of the IPO after seeing all the market factors and demand. How we do that, we'll come to. Third is use your savings account for applying for the IPO so that you do not lose the interest. And fourth is on the day of listing, you can choose to sell the shares allotted and realize listing gains, assuming that you are looking for a fixed return, a little return pop up with a limited equity risk. Some of these IPOs are good also. You can hold it for longer, but then that's a separate call. Generally speaking, in a bull market, many IPOs that list at a premium are unable to sustain it longer unless they are fundamentally very strong. So I think if you take a general rule of thumb, at least majority of the companies will not be able to sustain their listing gains when the market turns. And markets turn. History has taught us that. Now, whatever I'm speaking, we had actually uploaded a blog on this, which is still there on the Multiply website on Jan 18th, 2021 and Jan 22, 2021, way back in January. 2 blogs, once which was basically for, fixed income investors, people with limited equity market risk on how to enhance their returns. The first blog covered how you can increase your returns from 3.5% to 7%. And the second blog covered a lot of this IPO stuff that we are talking of. So this is not part of our today's agenda, but I'll still cover what we had in the first blog that we had published in January. We had said that liquid funds, PSUs, and large private sector banks give you around 3.5%, which is actually low. How can you increase it without taking risk? Scheduled commercial banks are under the aegis of RBI. Factual. Since independence, depositors have never lost money in a scheduled commercial bank. Think Global Trust Bank, think Yes Bank, cases of fraud, mismanagement, as bad as they get, but depositors never lost money for a very simple reason. A default here causes loss of confidence in the banking system. RBI would not allow that. So we feel that going to better managed scheduled commercial banks, which are well managed in the first place, and then you have the comfort of an RBI behind it, is a good way to increase your returns without taking risk. Note, we do not support putting money into cooperative banks. They do not enjoy the same level of comfort and support from RBI. And there have been numerous instances where people in cooperative banks have lost money, the latest being PMC. IndusInd Bank today gives you 5%. It's a great option for increasing your returns from 3.5 to 5. There are some well-managed and higher-paying small finance banks, which are still scheduled commercial banks like AU and Equitas, which give you about 6%. This is a no-risk strategy, which we had covered in the first blog. Now, if you had followed what we had written in our second blog in Jan, which is still there on the website, by the way, this is what would have happened. You would have ended up applying to all of these IPOs that are on your screen. You could have applied as an HNI. You could have applied as a retail category, right? So we have 2 tables. So first category, let's say you had applied as an HNI. That means you had applied for amounts over 2 lakhs in these IPOs. What would have happened? Let's take one example, Indigo Paints that we had recommended. It had a listing gain, as you see in column D, the fourth column, of 109%. However, the IPO was also oversubscribed 263 times, which means that had you applied for, say, whatever amount, the allocation would have been actually 1 by 263 of whatever amount you've applied, which means your listing gain would also have been 109 by 263, which is 0.42% as a percentage of the amount that you have applied. For the sake of calculation, let me take a very large number, right? I don't expect people to apply that. But let's say you had applied for 263 lakhs in the Indigo Paints. Your allocation would have been exactly 1 lakh, right? It's oversubscribed 263 times. It opens at a gain of 109%. That means your 100 rupee share would have been worth 209. You sold it off on the first day of listing, made a gain of 1,09,000 rupees on a total investment of 2,63,000. Do you divide that? You invested 263 lakhs, 2.63 crores, made a gain of 1.09 lakhs, which is 1,09,000. You made a gain of 0.42%. So this is how, in a similar manner, all these tables are made. Let's look at Nykaa, the last one. Let's say you had applied for 112 lakhs. You would have got an allocation of exactly 1 lakh, on which you would have made a gain of 110,000 rupees, right? So your gain would have been 0.98%. So we have actually just added up all the gains on these IPOs. You would have ended up making a gain of 12% on the amount that you would have applied. So had you followed the first block, moved your accounts to savings banks and enhance your return from 3.5 to 6, then followed these IPOs, you would have made a gain of a total return of 18% with very limited risk. I don't say no risk because, hey, there's a minus here. We had actually recommended Brookfield and it opened at a negative. And by following our recommendation, you would have lost 0.5% there of the amount you had applied. We have factored that into the calculations. What if you had applied in the retail category? It's also oversubscribed and you will have a lottery which determines whether you will get the allocation. The probability is low, as you can see, but how you can increase the probability is by applying in multiple names. And if you do that consistently, you will get some allocations. There are some risks to it, right? Which is basically if your IPO opens at a loss, there is an 8-day gap between the last day of application and the day of listing. In Brookfield, which he had recommended, actually opened at a loss. Investors made a loss of 0.5% there, despite the listing loss being 7%, because the oversubscription was 14 times. You would have made a loss of 0.5%. Similarly, in SBI Cards, which happened in March 2020, in the 8 days between last day of application and listing, the entire market had tanked because of COVID, March 2020. And therefore, investors made a listing loss of 10%, actual loss of much lower because the IPO was heavily oversubscribed. Points to note, you can apply in large amounts of high subscription as value at risk is lower. At Multiply, we will only recommend IPOs where we are expecting at least a 10x subscription. So that demand is high, pre-market premium is good. And therefore, if you apply for, let's say, 10 lakh rupees, your actual value at risk will be only 1 lakh rupees because you will not get an allocation of more than that. Home Loan OD is a great tool for increasing the amount that you subscribe for. I personally do it. It doesn't have a cost because, let's say I draw down on my Home Loan OD with a cost of 7%, put the money into a higher paying savings account like AU, Equitas, or Indexin. Basically, the interest that I earn and the interest that I pay on the bank loan cancels out. And whatever allocation I get increases my return. Here, important is to go in with the thought that I can apply with large amounts, with putting only a small percentage of the value at risk because the IPO will be oversubscribed. Home Loan OD increases the amount of liquidity you have quite dramatically. Yeah, The other points I've already covered. How Multipie selects which IPOs to go for. One is we do a fundamental analysis. We look at the valuations versus the peers. We look at the anchor book, which is already declared by that time, the quality of the anchor. We only choose IPOs that have a gray market premium of greater than equal to 20%, because going for lesser than that has some risk. But it's just not gray market premium. We do always look at the fundamentals and the valuation, the expected oversubscription, what is the value at risk, and finally, we also speak to the lead managers to get a sense of the demand. Now, I have talked a couple of times about a concept called gray market premium. Let me just explain what it is. It's the amount above the IPO price at which shares are trading unofficially outside the stock market. Right? People know it's going to be oversubscribed. They say, okay, if you get the subscription, I am willing to take it off you at so much premium. Now, this is unofficial. So while we do get estimates, they are never 100% accurate. So therefore, we never look only at gray market premium, because it can be manipulated, B, it is very, very volatile. But yes, it does help you to understand the demand and supply of a particular stock. And so we take that into account. There are some IPOs we did not subscribe to. Okay. Paytm, simple reasons being the gray market premium was only 10%. It did not meet our criteria of gray market premium 20%. And the company is not a market leader in any of its business segments. Suryoday, we did not subscribe to because we were not comfortable with the quality of their unsecured loan book. And the IPO was also not in demand. Chemplast, we did not subscribe to because it was a commodity business. And you know what? The call went okay. I mean, it's actually listed at a small premium. Even today is going at a small premium. So Paytm, Suryoday were great IPOs to avoid. Chemplast could have it was okay, neutral. Doodla Dairy and XRO Toys, we also avoided because we said dairy business is competitive. And in the case of XRO, we said, boss, it's a very small issue size. Numbers can be manipulated. We don't know the company. Let's stay away. They actually went on to list at premiums and did well. So I think our focus is conservatism. Want to focus on the right IPOs, which will give some kind of gains. In the process, we do end up not being able to recommend a couple of IPOs that go on to do well, like Doodla and XRO. But I think that's part of the journey of being an investor. There's an upcoming IPO of Star Health, which fundamentally we like. Once we get a great sense of the demand and the gray market premium, we will be coming up with something on it on the Multipie. Historically, in bull markets, the companies that list at strong premiums, majority of these are not able to sustain it. So we have focused on listing gains where the accuracy can be higher. Some of these companies will go on to do much better than their listing price also, but that's not part of the presentation here. That becomes your personal call. One recent development that has happened is that based on a recent RBI notification, post April 1st, 2022, investors, rather NBFCs will not be able to give leverage to HNIs of more than 1 crore per borrower. Right now, because of this gain to be made in this 8-day week, there's a very active NBFC leverage market where HNIs take large amounts of leverage and apply, therefore increasing the oversubscription in the HNI category. From 1st April, this will not be possible. Today, people are taking hundreds of crores of leverage. This will go down to 1 crore, which means the oversubscription in the HNI category will go down. And therefore, your probability of allotment as somebody who's not taking leverage will go up dramatically. Of course, this assumes that the IPO party will last till and beyond April 1, 2022. Nobody knows that. But if it does, this regulation will help everybody, and the returns that we have projected will go up for each IPO because the allocations will go up. If you want to stay in touch with us for all our IPO records, you can sign up on the app, download it from Google Play Store, App Play Store, use the code Multipie IPO. You can follow the Multipie handle for IPO updates, and our IPOs notes and posts will be posted there. Besides IPOs, we obviously are a much larger community. We do a lot. And first and foremost, we are a community where you can get answers to all your investing related questions. Any question on investing, not just IPO, post it, and we or other members of the community will respond. There are some other features also where you can upload your portfolio, you can view your asset allocation, you can get a health checkup report on your IPO, you can follow others, their allocations and portfolio if they are public users. But yeah, we'll wait for you to experience the app before getting more into that. That's all we have for today, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of the presentation. And now would love to delve into some questions. Okay, so I will just take them in order. First is Gautam has asked a question. Is IPO allotment really fair, or like EVM poll machines where always there is a doubt? Well, the answer is it is fair. Yes, it appears unfair to the people who apply and don't get a IPO. Yes, I can agree with the emotional sentiment, but the process is actually fair. There are SEBI guidelines which are followed to the T. The merchant bankers could lose their license if it is not followed. So, it is actually followed to the T. Okay. Nitin, I think that's a great point you have raised, that speaker has not taken into consideration that good listing stocks are oversubscribed. We won't get one in the lottery. Yes, it can happen. While the ones we got called wrong, we get an allocation. Absolutely, it can happen. And therefore, to prevent exactly this, we have recommending only certain IPOs, not all IPOs, to ensure that you are actually applying in the better ones and not in the poorer ones. There is no guarantee, but as that table shows, if you had followed all the IPOs that Multiply suggested, you would have made profits in all of them, or at least the ones where you got an allotment other than Brookfield. This risk is there if you actually apply in every IPO. But if you start choosing your IPOs carefully based on the set of filters that we had, right? Gray market premium of more than 20%, fundamental, and I'll just refresh that slide maybe. This slide. If you follow all of these criteria, the chances of you getting it wrong go down very dramatically, and that's what we do, right? That's our value add. Okay. Why some more questions from Gautam? Why some IPOs are allowed intraday on the listing day, but some categorized under B category where you can't short? So shorting is allowed only on IPOs that are under the FNO category. You can't short other stocks because by definition, shorting requires the stock to have a futures and option mechanism. And today, these are available only for larger companies, not for smaller companies. So therefore, actually, you cannot short every company. Only very large companies would have an FNO. Next question is from Joseph. Is the HNI allotment subject to lottery? Absolutely. Okay. Let me take it in a more nuanced one. It is first a pro rata, right? So, and actually largely a pro rata for the sake of simplicity. Let's say if the IPO is oversubscribed 50 times, everybody will get an allocation of 1/50th of the amount that they have applied for, with one nuance. It's subject to the minimum lot size of 15,000 rupees. So if you have applied in this example for 7.5 lakh rupees, IPO oversubscribed 50 times, you will get your allocation of 15,000 rupees guaranteed. However, if you had applied for a lower amount, which makes your pro rata allocation less than 15,000 rupees, there will be a lottery because, as per SEBI, people will get necessarily a minimum allocation of 15,000 rupees. you will not get an allocation of 7,000 rupees. There's a direct question from Sid to me. I presume it's meant for everybody because it seems fairly public. Can anybody apply for IPO under retail HNI? Or is there a criteria that one has to meet to apply under HNI? There is none. The only criteria is to apply in the HNI category, you need to invest more than 2 lakhs. It doesn't matter whether in reality, what is your net worth is not relevant here. So absolutely, if you want to apply for more than 2 lakhs in an IPO, you can apply under the HNI category. And by the way, not only you, but if you have a company or you have an HNI, or if you have an HUF, that can also apply under the HNI category. There's no issue. Next question is from Nitin. How to convert savings account to ASBA account? What are the disadvantages of doing this? Earlier there used to be a conversion process. Today it is actually automatic, and your accounts are actually savings accounts are ASBA account. If you have any doubts, you could just check with your RM at the bank. There is zero disadvantage of doing this, which is the second part of the question. There is no disadvantage because your ASBA account functions exactly like a savings account. And it's only when you have applied in an IPO, the only one difference comes is that in your traditional old-time savings account, the money would have left your account. You would have lost interest on that amount because it's no longer in your savings account. But now you will not do so because the amount remains in your savings account. It is only blocked. You cannot use it for something else, by the way, right? You cannot block that amount and go and spend it the next day. The bank will block the transaction. This is to ensure that if you actually get the allotment, the money is for 100% there in your account and the IPO process can go on smoothly. So it's blocked. You can't use it till the IPO allotment is done. If it's allotted, the money will be taken out of your account. If it is not allotted, the block will simply be removed and you can use it. The next question is from Gautam. Is that Paytm was allowed in the FNO? Yes. See, it was a very large company. As I said, in the smaller companies, FNO is not allowed. Paytm, of course, is one of the larger companies, and FNO was allowed. So it must have been under the SEBI FNO list. Only larger companies meet that criteria. And yeah, that would have been the reason. Having said that, if you see one of our recent blogs, which was about 15 days back, there were 3 IPOs on at that time: Paytm, Latent View, and one more, which I forget. Our blog was very clear that Latent View is the only IPO that we are suggesting you apply for. So we haven't tracked Paytm that way because our blog was actually very clear that we are not going for Paytm. The next question is from Nitin. Is the probability of getting an allocation higher in the HNI category? It's a great question. So next, this is actually from Chandana. No, it's from Nitin. It's a great question, Nitin. So as we have seen earlier during the presentation, for good IPOs, both categories got oversubscribed. But the HNI category got oversubscribed even more. Does that mean that the HNI category gives you a worse probability? Well, the answer is it depends on the amount you apply. Let's take a simple example. Let us say retail category is oversubscribed 10x and HNI category is oversubscribed 30x, which is broadly the ratio that was followed, right? Now, in retail category, it's very clear you have a 10% probability. In HNI category, it's oversubscribed 30x, which means if you had applied 30x into 15,000, which is 4.5 lakh rupees, you are actually guaranteed of an allocation because you have applied for a larger amount. So even after dividing it by 30, you have met the minimum lot size and you are guaranteed an allocation. The problem is that if in the HNI category you had applied for 3 lakh rupees, you would have still be running under a lottery system and then it could go anywhere. the retail probability could be higher, the HNI probability could be higher. But if I want to give a general rule of thumb for everybody to follow without getting into the very intricate maths, if you are applying for an amount that is more than 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs, if you want to be even safer, you are better off applying in the HNI category. For lower amount, it depends. If you are going to apply for 3 lakhs, you are better off applying in the retail category with just 15,000 rupees. That's how you can take as broad rules of thumb for determining whether you should apply in HNI or retail. Less than 3 lakhs, go for retail. Between 3 and 6 lakhs, it depends on the specific IPO. Above 6 lakhs, just go for HNI category. The next question is from Chandana. Can retail get a better chance in lottery if applied for 2 lakhs? The answer is for heavily oversubscribed IPOs, the answer is no. If the IPO is actually just 1x subscribed, the guy who applies for 2 lakhs in retail will get 2 lakhs, and the guy who applies for 15,000 will get 15,000. But the IPOs we recommend will invariably be oversubscribed. If they are not, we will not recommend them in the first place. Which means in a highly oversubscribed scenario, there will be a simple lottery. The guy who has applied for 15,000 stands no better chance than the guy who's applied for 2 lakhs. So you may as well apply for 15,000. What you should try though, as mentioned earlier in the presentation, Chandana, is apply in the names of various family members as well. So that in that way, you can increase your probability of getting an allotment. Nitin, next question. Do we always sell on the listings? Will there be situations where Multiply asks to hold on for a few more days as the stock continues to rise? Okay. So Nitin, first, the bigger thing that we wanted to cover was to capture that listing gain, which is with a limited market risk. Now, post that, you are actually taking a pure play market risk, which can give you a much better return or a much lower return, right? And there, frankly, it's a function of your risk appetite also, right? And in certain situations, we have recommended some IPOs for long term. For example, case in point being GR Infra, right? So there, where we have understood the company very well, we had a chance to speak to the management. We will stick our neck out and say, guys, this can also be considered for long term if you have the equity market risk. Otherwise, the purpose of this talk at least is to focus on the listing gain. On the Multiply app, we do talk of post-listing as well. What our views on the company, we talk of it, our other community members talk of it. You will get both pluses and minuses, and sometimes you have to form your own view as well. But yes, in some good companies, you will find there are more pluses, but we will tend to be conservative there because in companies that we have not interacted with the management directly, it's unlikely that we will tell you to hold on for a much longer period. A classic case is IRCTC, where we said, yeah, you apply, you get a listing gain, and you can sell. But look, guys, it went 5x up from there. It's still up 5x from the listing day, right? So you could lose out on that. So therefore, we say that there you take your personal call. We are making sure at least you maximize your probability of getting an allotment and capture the listing gain at least. And then it's a personal call, but to help you take that personal call better, you can look at the discussions on Multiply, where there will be some discussions. Okay, any more questions? Thank you, Nitin. Pankti, maybe we can unmute everybody. If somebody has a question, they can ask. Okay, there's one more question from Karthik. What's your view on the IPO market after Paytm? Will we see a slowdown? I think yes, we will see a slowdown because Paytm was a classic case of investment bankers over aggressively marketing an IPO at higher valuations because the promoter was pushing them. He wanted the size of the IPO to be more than Coal India and therefore the largest IPO ever was also selling his own shares in the IPO. That was another reason to push up the IPO price. And typically when investors burn their hands in a large IPO, they lose larger monies than they would do on a smaller IPO. And investors do have that memory. The international and the domestic funds largely did not apply for it. There were only a couple of funds like Mirai and HDFC who applied for it. Fortunately, domestic mutual funds stayed away from it. So if you are a mutual fund investor, you did not lose money on Paytm. However, foreign funds did lose money on Paytm, and this definitely, has resulted in a more sombering of the mood, particularly for companies where the business model is not so clear, the revenue model is not so clear, right? So yes, it will affect the IPO sentiment for companies with unclear revenue model. And MobiKwik, as you very rightly point out, has been shelved for exactly that same reason. Plus, of course, in the last few days, this new variant of COVID has affected the market sentiment, and IPOs always react to market sentiments. So we could see a slightly more tepid IPO market going forward. But again, if you plan your IPOs well, choose the right ones, you would make money. For example, by the way, last week we recommended this, Go Colors IPO, and it will be listed next week. And we actually expect it to list at a premium despite the volatility in the market, because there was enough buffer and safety built into our recommendation. You can check out the Multiply app. We had recommended Go Color. I don't know the result. It will be listed next week, but I expect it to be positive. Next question is from Joseph. Are there any relevance to different class shares, class A, that get listed? Any point we should keep in mind? See, Joseph, for the benefit of investors like you and me, SEBI has simplified the regulations. Practically in all of the recent IPOs, there's only one class of shares that has got listed, which is common equity shares. And therefore, we actually need not bother about which class of shares it's, because it's only one class of shares that's listed and gets traded. There are a few exceptions like a Tata Motor differential voting right, which is where there are two classes of shares listed, but they are the exceptions than the norm. And in all the IPOs of 2021, we did not see any IPO of that nature. There was only one class of share listed. So really, there's no need to worry about which class of shares you are applying for. If at all there is an IPO which has differential classes of shares, we'll point it out very clearly, but it will not happen in more than 95% of the cases. Nitin, next question is from you. Which upcoming IPO are you most looking forward to? Star Health seems a good one actually, because it's a market leader in its business. See, fundamentally, it's a strong company. It's a market leader in its business. It has faced some problems in the year 2021, thanks to massive increase in health insurance claims that it had to settle. The company had to pay out a lot of those claims. The profitability went for a toss, but fundamentally it is a market leader. So we are looking forward to it. But as always, we will take a sense of the demand, the gray market premium, and then come out with a recommendation. Star Health is expected very shortly, actually. Next question is from Sid. How do you assess the quality of anchor book as well as investment bankers involved in the valuation of the IPO? Great question, Sid. See, investment bankers, there are about 15 investment bankers that are doing all of these IPOs. Typically, and there is a class A and class B, right? Class A is the top 5 global houses. Let's say a Bank of America Merrill Lynch, a CLSA, a JP Morgan, a Citibank. They are like top notch. Okay. I don't want to name the second category. There might be a couple more in the first category. Even in the domestics, there are a couple of top-notch guys. Say Kotak would be definitely top-notch. Axis would come pretty close. And then there would be some smaller investment banks that are, not top-notch. I don't want to name them, right? So and if you look at the track record, if you do some correlation analysis, actually there is a very strong correlation analysis between top-notch IPOs and the listing price, which has done well. Between the quality of the investment bankers and the listing price. It fails in one case though. where the quality of the IPO is very size of the IPO is very large. There greed takes over. So for example, Paytm had top-notch investment bankers because the size of the IPO was so large, nobody was able to say no to the fee, right? So there, this kind of analogy fails, but for very small IPOs, 500 crore, 1,000 crore issue size, which investment banker has taken the mandate is a decent enough is a good indicator. I'm not saying it's enough in itself. It's a good indicator. We have our list of investment bankers whom we consider top notch. Some names of the top notch we have shared with you. Don't want to share on a public forum the guys whom we don't regard so highly. Yes, and if we see only the second grade investment bankers in an IPO, it raises some alarm bells because what kind of diligence and disclosures they may have done to investors becomes slightly more questionable. That's on the investment bankers. On the quality of anchor book, see if there are large global funds like let's say a GIC, a Temasek, a Fidelity, right? These are people with very, very deep pockets, tend to be, buy and hold investors. It's always good, right? Because that means there won't be that much supply pressure coming on the stock. If you see some smallish hedge funds applying, it's not so good because there suddenly could be a lot of selling pressure on the stock, right? That's how we assess the quality of anchor book for international investors. And for domestics, the larger mutual funds are a good play. So for example, in a sector that is real estate or allied to real estate, for example, the REITs, we always look whether HDFC mutual fund is applied for it because they have a great sense of whatever is happening in the real estate market. It is a subjective analysis, but the good news is, you know what? These anchor books are publicly disclosed to everybody. They are put up on the BSE website. Not only we, you can also look at it. If you are lazy, you really don't want to look at it or invest, you don't have the time and energy, you have caught up in other situations, then you can simply follow Multiply. We will be actually analyzing the quality of the anchor book and building it up into our recommendation. The next question from Gautam. Since LIC is huge, is it going to be a flop? It's a futuristic question, Gautam. I don't know the answer, but yes, very large IPOs have at times led to flops. LIC is a government-owned company. Historically, other than the last 6 months, PSUs have underperformed the market. So I'm not too excited on LIC. Balance, as they say, bhav bhagwan che, market will decide, but I am personally not excited. Okay, I think, okay, great question again from Sid. Would you say PE, price to earnings ratio, is a very misleading metric for IPO companies? Since the assumption is that these are high growth companies, what valuation matrices do you use for IPOs? See, if it's a traditional company, we will definitely use PE as one of the matrices. If it's a new age company like a Nykaa or a Policybazaar or a Paytm, then yes, PE is not the best metrics. In fact, some of these companies are loss making, so PE will give you no result. I think the matrix, first of all, we look for, is it a market leader? Is it really very good at the one thing that it does or the two things that it does? Nykaa and Policybazaar ticked that criteria and therefore we recommended it. Paytm did not and we did not recommend it. Why do we look at that criteria? Globally in the internet businesses, we have seen that it tends to be a winner or a couple of winner takes all. So it's very important that the company that you back is the winner or one of the two winners in the industry. If you back an fifth or sixth player, frankly, it may not do well because the winner in that particular segment takes it all, as has been the case globally. Now, internet businesses are still emerging in India. We do not have enough historicals to go by. So the only thing we can do is actually see the experience of other markets like US and China, right? Which are where these businesses have been around for longer. Seems to suggest that yes, there will be growth in these companies. So what we look for is A, market leadership. B, is there a moat? C, is there potential to grow for some time? Right? Is there a clear runway where they can achieve 50%, 70% growth for the next few years? Right? Because the market is pricing in that kind of growth. If that growth is not realized, stocks can really tank. So we look at those things and go ahead. Having said that, for Policy Bazaar as well as for Nykaa, I personally applied, got some allocation, and have sold them also, because the reality is one needs to stay in one circle of competence. I don't think I have all of the competence needed to value some of these companies which are so non-traditional in nature. Doesn't mean anything. They could still go on to do very well. It just means that I have stayed in my circle of competence. But by the way, many of our committee members at Multiply do hold this, and chances are they will do very well in these stocks as well, particularly the ones that are market leaders. Okay. Question from Naman. Seeing yesterday's fall in the market, how do we see the movement in the new companies that got listed recently? And in general, what is the view for the overall market? See, in a fall, all companies are impacted, some more than the others. So if a company is anything to do with travel, hospitality, it will fall even more. Companies that are purely internet businesses may fall less, because the market could say that, look, if you're going to sit at home, there's a lockdown, you will use Nykaa even more, right? So they may not fall as much. I think we are not going to see, I don't visualize a mayhem of the March 2020. Yes, there will be some running around, but in this kind of running around, in this kind of little mini few bear weeks, the market will distinguish between companies. It will not be an all fall down. So companies whose business models are less affected, like pharma, etc., will do well. Companies whose business models are more affected will do badly. What is the view for the overall market? Frankly, that's a chapter in itself, so I will avoid it. But I will only say that, over very long periods of time, equity markets give you the best return. So if you have the mental strength and the patience to remain in the market for very long term, I don't think one variant should affect your investment timings. But yes, if you're a short-term horizon, you have to take your call. The next question is from Gautam. How to deal with IPOs hitting back to back? How to back upper circuits and lower circuits? Okay, UC and LC are upper circuits and lower circuits, like Paras Defense. I don't know, Gautam. That's the simple answer. Paras Defense, it listed at a gain, and frankly, we sold at that. So listen, it's not important that you need to know every company in and out. I personally feel you need to know a few companies very well. And for the balance, you can play this listing game that we discussed. The next question is from Parikshit. And guys, we are approaching the end of our scheduled time. So if any of you want to log off, you're most welcome to. We don't want to stand between you and your lunch. But for guys who want to keep answering questions, we are here. We'll keep answering your questions. The next question is from Parikshit. Most analysts wrote Tesla off in the earlier days, saying they may not be able to justify valuations. They proved everyone wrong, and Elon Musk is the wealthiest guy today. Which companies do you think are on a similar path in India? Parikshit, the humble answer is, I don't know, right? Because a lot of these things are known only in retrospective. I think it also needs to be remembered that when Tesla was there in the earlier days, there was no tech boom, right? So the probability of a company going on to give supernormal returns was higher. Today, there is a boom here. So, a lot of good news has been factored in. So the probability, just the probability of companies giving outsized returns has gone down. Some will still obviously do so. But we prefer companies that are number one in their segment, right? Where there is a clear moat, where there is a pricing power. So to that extent, among the 3 or 4 listed companies, Zomato and Nykaa, we rate higher, because At least they are very good at what they do, right? And they also have a pricing power over the consumer. You will not stop using Nykaa or Zomato just because they increase prices by 5%. Similarly, Policybazaar is also a market leader, but I think the pricing moat is slightly less strong, because if they start increasing prices, it will not stop you. I think very soon you'll start going to Turtlemint or another company that is also selling you insurance, because you'll say, hey, if I'm going to buy this insurance for 105 at Policybazaar, why should I do it? I'll do it at 100 at Turtlemint. So I think the pricing moat is relatively less stronger. And Paytm, we do not have a very strong view. We have a rather bearish view, simply because we are yet to see Paytm emerge as market leader in any of the segments other than the very low value payments where frankly there is no money to be made. It is there in a lot of segments, but it is not in top 5 in any of the segments. So yeah, not very bullish on that. Okay. Thank you everyone for asking so many questions. To us also, it gives us the most joy if you ask questions. This is always the most exciting part for us. You've been a lovely audience, asked so many questions, and I really hope that many of you go on to your Google Play Store, your Apple Play Store, download Multiply, use the invite code Multiply IPO, come onto the app, see what we see for not just upcoming IPOs, but on other aspects of the market. Follow us. It would be lovely to have you guys all on the app. Thank you so much for your time and have a lovely weekend.